First of all, welcome you all. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for agreeing to answer some questions, to let people know. So to give you a little background on the Happily Hired formula, it is a job search group that is essentially wanted to know more about what you're all running into in terms of what it's like out there from the hiring manager side, from the recruiter side with COVID. Is it, how has it changed in terms of your search parameters? What are you seeing different in candidates? All that sort of good stuff. So that's what we'll get into tonight. First and foremost, we'd like to learn a bit of, I swear I've spoken before, to learn a little bit about each and every one of you. So if you would all please introduce yourselves. I'm going to literally just call your name in the order you are on my Zoom screen right now. Brenna, would you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you do, your background, all that good stuff?
Sure. So as I think Diane mentioned, I'm a recruiter at Tom's. I work with an amazing team. My background, after 7 years of recruiting with startups, I finally was able to find my home on an impact and mission-driven organization. So I'm going to camp out there pretty much for the rest of my life, and hopefully I'll see some of you guys there.
Nice. Thank you. And Diane?
Hi, everyone. I'm Diane Piratino. I actually recently just joined my new agency called The Agency Works after coming from many, many years at a couple of other agencies, including my own many, many years ago. I rep both freelance and full-time talent, and I work with all kinds of clients like Tom's, entertainment clients, advertising clients. I tend to focus a little bit more heavily in the marketing and creative space, but we're also handling now at this new company a lot of tech and a lot of admin, and pretty much I will try to help my clients with anything that they're looking and my can.
Thank you. And Christina?
Hi, I used to work with Kate as well a while ago when I was on the third-party agency side. I just started working at Magic Leap, which is an AR tech startup, about, I think, 3 or 4 months ago now. I just moved back to the States. I was in London for the past 6 years working at RGA London on the digital agency side. So I've been a third-party recruiter and then moved in-house about 7 years ago. So I have experience from both sides. And also, I'm sorry it's dark. It's East Coast time, and I'm at my parents' house in between houses. COVID has affected us all. So
Absolutely.
And Stephen?
Oh, hi, everyone. My name is Stephen Gay. I'm a UX leader, so a long history of working in design and in tech. I'm currently at Google, leading the Google One team, but I've been at companies like Intuit and other startups. So yeah, excited to be on the panel today.
Thank you. Well, thank you all for taking the time. This is really exciting to have you all with us tonight. Before I get into questions, remind the audience that we want to take your questions as well. So if you shoot them in the Slack, I will ask them at some point a little later on. So please start letting us know as we start talking what you all want to know, what's on your mind. So I am going to ask all of you as a general group to share down the line and share how recruiting has changed for you personally in your organization since COVID and the lockdowns have started. What has changed on your side of the screen? Brenna?
Sure, I'll go first. I think COVID has presented a lot of chaos and a small silver lining where entire parts of the industry around us are changing for a lot of reasons, the negative. We're seeing bankruptcies, we're seeing retail completely disrupted or put on pause and furloughed, and all of this is a reality. But at the same time, we're also seeing new opportunities for remote team members that wouldn't have any sort of access to the roles that we're now hiring for. And we're seeing now a push to invest more upfront in talent who might have 60% of what we're looking for, and then committing to bring in and train them up on the other 40%. So boo, terrible things happening in the job market. Yay, investing in people in new ways and giving new opportunities.
Thanks. Thank you. All right, I'm going to send the same question to Stephen.
Yeah, I think one thing that's really been highlighted with COVID is like bringing that empathy into the recruiting conversation, like being open and accepting to like things happen during the interview process. People are coming at it from a different perspective. So as a hiring manager, I'm always kind of being really open to that awareness of what's going on in the situation. I think the fundamentals of recruiting probably hasn't changed that much from the hiring manager side. I'm looking for things like storytelling and the ability to like communicate a person's capabilities and skills and what they really bring to the opportunity. But for the most part, it's like being aware and showing that empathy.
Thank you. Diane, how has it changed for you on the third party side?
So yeah, as working in an agency, I mean, if you probably talked to me in March or April, I mean, I just would have probably been crying because it was so challenging, and I felt like it was so difficult to get any of my clients to continue to work with me. And I've had so many candidates in the market, freaking out. And then really we started to see things start to come back as we got into June and July, and I'm feeling confident that we're continuing to move that way, which is a good sign. It's very difficult when you don't have a job in a situation like this. It's very difficult. So some of the things that I've seen change from my perspective, I work on both temporary and permanent roles. A lot of the clients that I'm working with are a little bit more hesitant to make full-time commitments, and so some of the roles that they may have normally filled with a full-time employee, they're looking at contractors where they can be a little bit more flexible with how they're going to utilize them. And so that's one trend I think I've seen. And then I think maybe just to speak a little bit to what Stephen said, kind of from my own perspective, trying to have a lot more understanding and care when I'm speaking to anybody, whether it's the client who really needs to hire people and can't, or whether it's the candidate who's been looking for 6 months and not finding a job. It is a challenging market. That is not a made up situation. And so you just I'm trying to make sure that I'm handling everything with care, as always, but more so than usual.
You're on mute, Kate, but I think you're asking me the same question.
Thank you. Sorry, it got very loud outside, so I had to mute myself.
That's fine. So I'd say, echoing a little bit of what Brenna said, what's changed for me is really hiring managers specifically being much more open to remote talent. And that has really, given us the chance to look at talent that we wouldn't have before, especially in my role at Magic Leap. There are locations in the US, we're mainly in Florida and LA, and it's really opened up the talent market for them there. And from an empathy's point of view, I'd say I also recruiters have been affected by this, and it's been a competitive market, and I was on the other side with you guys at some point in there. And so my best advice is just to kind of keep going and keep talking to as many people as you can. And I'm hearing a lot of stories about candidates that are either new to the market or haven't been in the market that long, getting frustrated about not getting responses or being left hanging. And most of us are doing everything we can, but there's just so much high volume. I'd say to be patient and just keep at it.
Thank you. Yeah, so that is a natural lead in to my next question, which was sort of a follow-up to that, which is, you talked about, you as a group had talked about the market opening up in terms of location, people working remotely. Brenna, you mentioned investing in people who might not have, kind of all of the skills you were looking for previously. How has that changed your candidate pool? Are you feeling like you're getting flooded? Do you feel like it's harder to find the right candidate as the needle in the haystack, or that you're just getting so many more good candidates? Like, how is that changing your inbox?
I wouldn't say that we're getting bad candidates, but let me give you a very real number. We opened a social media marketing role on Monday morning. And by Tuesday morning, I had 136 resumes. So I think you can understand this is for one company. I can't even imagine if I were working for a third-party recruiting agency right now. So we are getting a lot of talented people, but we are also getting a lot of people who are flexing and trying to find a new place for themselves after so many sections of the industries have been completely changed. We're seeing people coming from the retail side and trying to get into creative, and like people really are trying to flex and make changes for themselves. Unfortunately, there are so many people doing it. So that investment in talent that's coming in, you really do have to stand out, and that's hard to do on paper. And I know that's one of your questions that you're going to ask. So
yeah, we will definitely get there. Because you mentioned you can't even imagine what it's like for a third-party recruiter. Diane, what are you seeing? What is different about your inbox right now?
So I would say it's kind of a combination of all the three things you mentioned. Yes, we're getting an overwhelming response. Yes, we're hearing from a lot of really good candidates. And yes, it's like a needle in a haystack finding it. So it's all of those things. Sometimes as a third-party recruiter, markets like this can actually be where it's really an ideal opportunity for a client to use a recruiter, because you're getting, you're trying to do your job and you're getting 135 resumes. As far as being the candidate in this market and being that person who's one of 135 resumes, I guess we'll speak a little bit more to like how you can, I always use this term when I talk to my candidates, packaging yourself for the job. And also knowing, I'm always for letting a candidate know they can give something a try. They can try for this opportunity, but I think it's also emotional when you're job searching. It really does get personal. To say it's not personal is not fair. It's your life and your job. But that if you are going to go for that job, that's a shift, like Brenna said, from what you've been doing. Think before you make that. You put yourself in front of that job. How do I package myself to be the right person for the job? I'm not just going to send my same resume of what I've been doing for a million years and expect for me to be reviewed for this different opportunity. So I think that sort of packaging yourself and also being realistic. Go for it, but be realistic maybe about what to expect in those situations.
So Stephen and Christine, I want to hear how it may have changed in tech, because I'm guessing you were already getting quite a few resumes before this happened. And you may have been more open to remote work as well before this happened. Stephen, I'll start with you.
Yeah, sure. I think for me, again, in tech, we have, you always see a lot of resumes coming in, my time at Google, my time at Intuit, looking at my past experience, I used to hire quite a bit globally. So I was always interviewing candidates and hiring them all over like video chat. But again, like the fundamentals are still there. I'm always looking for what a candidate brings in terms of like what capabilities they bring to the opportunity, but also like how they do it, how they collaborate, how they work with other people. So I think if anyone's sort of applying, and I should pause there, I should say, what a wonderful gift to switch from one industry to another industry. Like bringing that expertise is only going to help bring diversity and different thinking into the new job. So I think that's something that a person should embrace and kind of go for it, but know they have to communicate those fundamentals. And so if you can bring great collaboration from your previous job, communicate that in the new job to the person that's interviewing you. I think a lot of the stuff, I think, Brenna, you said, like, you can train up that last 30%. And again, I think you can demonstrate really great how it can go a long way.
Yeah, I was going to say, for me, I don't know what other companies' experiences have been like, but I know the two that I've been working at through this pandemic, there's been downsizing. So the teams have been shrinking. So the hiring managers have even less time. So it's even harder to get, not to sound, this is meant to be helpful as opposed to sound discouraging, but it's even harder sometimes to get those video calls in with the hiring managers. So I've been doing a lot more recruitment screens than I normally would. And I would just encourage to be, in that communication and collaboration leading up to an interview, try to give as much information as you can, not just in the paper package on the job, but in your interaction with the people on the team through email, setting up those calls, because that's going to really help. A lot of people out there are frustrated, and a lot of us are spread thin. And so you'll really stand out. At least the candidates I've been talking to have been standing out, who are patient and know that it's a weird environment right now and are willing to kind of collaborate in that manner.
Any other thoughts from any of you about, because you all mentioned sort of packaging yourself the right way, presenting yourself the right way for the role. Any specifics in terms of what you've seen in the past that has worked really well? What job searchers out there can do to make sure that they are standing out when they reach out to you? Whether it's when they apply, before they apply, after they apply?
I always, sorry to jump in first, but I have always had really good experience with, if you see a job and I'm not saying every job that you see out there, but if you see one that you feel especially passionate about, or that you really feel like you could be a great fit for, apply. So make sure you're in the database, but then try to message not everybody in the recruitment team, but maybe someone from the recruitment team who works there, who you think might be overseeing that discipline, and just say, hey, you know, I signed up for, or I applied to this role. I just wanted, you know, XYZ. This is why I think I'd be good for it. Because when you do have so many resumes to go through, if you get pinged on LinkedIn, that's helpful. Whereas if you just get pinged on LinkedIn and there's not an application, then you don't have both things together. Yeah, so that's my advice.
I could add in. Oh, go ahead, Brenna. Go ahead, Brenna.
No, I was muting myself because of street noise.
I'll piggyback on what Christina said, and it kind of completely always shocks me at how incomplete sometimes people are in their communication. So to speak to what Brenna said, that's an excellent idea. You're going to make an application, then maybe you're going to message a couple of people. But by all means, like, make sure that you're communicating. Like, I will get a response to something and then somebody doesn't include their resume. I mean, that's obviously applying to a job 101, but maybe more than that. If you're a designer, make sure you're including your most current work, and make sure that those samples, if you're applying for a packaging design job, are going to be packaging driven. Like, it's a lot of work looking for a job. So believe me, I don't want to put people down if they make an error. That's not what I'm talking about. But take the time to think through how you're communicating with someone, and be as thorough as you possibly can, so that there's nothing left out. Nobody can go, I wonder. That's it. Don't write a book as a cover letter. I don't mean that. I mean thorough in that I've got my resume, I've got my current samples, I've packaged myself properly, all that stuff that we're talking about all at once.
I could probably chime in on a little bit on that packaging there. I think, again, I've kind of followed this sort of best practice. The way I recommend people maybe package some of the material is sort of like, it should include the 3 elements, and you're mapping these 3 elements to the opportunity you're applying to. It's like, what was the problem you were trying to solve on a particular project? You know, what did you do? Like, what was your behavior? What was your role? And then what was that outcome? And those 3 elements I'm always looking for when I look at a portfolio example, when I look at a career listing in the resume. Like, what were those 3 elements? And then that helps me better understand what that person's capabilities were, how they think about their role, and then how they succeeded. And so if I don't see those, I think for me, it's hard to kind of unpack what this person is capable of, which then leads to that next step of the video chat, when you're then seeing, like, how do they interact? How do they think on their feet? How do they solve problems real time? So.
Yeah, I think just to piggyback on that, Stephen, in the before times, as I call them, when I had more time to kind of sit on the phone with experienced designers or UX designers or even visual designers and help them get an understanding of what kind of case studies they should put together for each and every role, it was easier to spend more time doing that. And the candidates that are standing out are definitely, if you have 1 to 2 solid case studies that are just really clear that you could send across, that's the best way.
Yeah. And just to add in, I think all of this is incredibly good advice. One thing that I hear a lot of is people don't realize they can establish online portfolios for themselves, even if they're not in a creative or technical field. So if you have those work samples, you can put them on a website, you can include that in your resume, make it clickable, and even how you engage on things like social media or Quora. If you really want to stand out and showcase how well or how capable you are in a certain field, people are still looking there.
Gabriella, I'm so glad you say clickable. That is another thing. Make sure if you have stuff on your resume, you want people to see that you can click on it and get there.
And
Don't put your
remove any-
website on there if you can't click on it and get there, you know? Clickable, keyword.
And also Google Sites is very easy to just do a quick and dirty couple of case studies. That's what I did for myself about my recruiting practice, and that's how I got the job I did now. So
it
Or
makes
even
a huge difference.
sorry, Stephen.
I was gonna say even creating a slides.
Yeah, exactly.
Real easy mechanism.
Yeah.
And obviously, maybe it's worth saying it's the key is like try to make it as concise as possible while communicating those 3 points. I think when you click through to something and then it's a long scrolling page, then you're gonna lose the audience. And so simplification, trying to get that concise message is key.
Mhm.
People have a short attention span. I can attest to that for sure. For sure. Yeah.
Because you all mentioned, so have there been specific candidates, not names, but it's something that specific candidates have done in the past that really stood out for you? Are there any examples you can give us of when you saw someone who was maybe a career changer who really delivered the goods and was able to open your eyes to, hey, I might be a good fit for this, or, you know, just someone you maybe wouldn't have considered if their resume had been worded differently or their samples hadn't been there?
I always say that, I mean, I'm speaking from a design specific perspective, that if it's hard to read through your portfolio and you're a designer, that's not a great sign. So I would say make sure if you're a user experience designer or a visual designer that your craft, your clients don't matter what's in the book. It's mainly like how you're looking at the portfolio. If it's well designed, it's kind of touching on what we're talking about in the last conversation too. But there's one candidate I'm thinking of who was junior and he didn't have any industry experience, and it was very hard to impress my hiring managers at RGA London, and his personal work and the way he laid out his portfolio from a visual design sense, you know, got him the job. And he was self-taught, he didn't go to school. So it's not just the way you package yourself, but when you're putting your portfolio together, that's expressing your own visual language. And I think that's probably the best sample that you could provide.
I agree with that. Sorry. It's tough to know on a Zoom when to jump in. But from a slightly different perspective, because Tom's is such a mission-driven, blatantly liberal organization, we don't, you know, we're not shy about the things that we care about and the things that we stand for. And I think when a candidate is trying to make an impression, and it's genuinely coming from a place of being aligned with those values, that speaks first. So I've gotten candidates applying, writing a letter, or even you know, messaging me on LinkedIn and just saying, hey, I know I'm making a shift in my career, but I believe in what you guys stand for. I saw this post on social media. This really spoke to me because of XYZ. And that, on top of willingness to learn and, you know, being able to point to the skills that you lack and having that self-awareness, and then having a way to fix that, or at least a way to engage with that, huge. And that person is the first one that I bring to the hiring manager.
Nice, thank you. Any other thoughts on that before I ask my next question? Touching on something Christina said about, you know, people who show their patience, that they understand that things are different now and that the process is going to take a different amount of time or a different number of interviews. What is too much? When do you want to hear from people? Do you have a sense of, it's great to check in with me if, but not X?
I'll answer that because I'm always a big persistence pays off kind of gal. If you are going to check in with me and you are going to be positive and you're not going to waste my time is a tough word, but nobody has a ton of time. I don't have an hour to talk to you. But if you're going to drop me a quick note once in a while and you want to call me once in a while because you want to hear a voice, I don't mind that. I don't mind that. But I think persistence pays off. You just have to be careful. Again, it's all goes back to communication. You have to be careful how you communicate. You don't want to call and be aggravated or angry that somebody hasn't gotten back to you. That's going to do you no good. So polite, concise, back to concise, like Stephen said, polite, concise, friendly persistence in my book is okay.
Nice.
I try to do a really good job of setting expectations as a recruiter. And I feel like that kind of helps, I'll say, feel free to ping me if you don't hear from me by X. So maybe if you're talking to another recruiter and they're not giving you that kind of expectation, you can ask them, when should I reach out to you if I don't hear from you by a certain time? Or will I hear from you, if XYZ, that kind of thing. I think it's kind of like a relationship. Like if you're setting the expectation, the other person, it's easier to not get frustrated on either side.
Just to plus one that, I'd say, yeah, it's absolutely okay to ask like, when would it be okay for me to follow up? Is a week okay? And then you're right, follow up with a concise email, note, and being open to, like, it might take 2-3 more weeks, and that's just part of the process.
And the only other thing I'd add is if you're looking to reach out to somebody before you're already in touch with a recruiter or a hiring manager, absolutely do that. Just ask yourself 2 questions. One, who am I talking to and why is it relevant to them? And then I guess the third would be, have I already reached out to somebody on the team? Because if we do get candidates that reach out to the director and the VP and the manager and all of these different people, and unfortunately, if you shoot yourself in the foot once, it's going to go down the chain. So it's much safer to make that decision once, follow up with that one person instead of going down the line.
Thank you. What is your best advice to those who are trying to make either a career change or an industry change outside of kind of packaging their resume correctly or packaging their work samples correctly? Are there other things they can be doing sort of outside that to help put them in line for that next new thing? I will start with Diane.
So that's a hard one, I think, for an external recruiter, for a third-party recruiter. And the only reason I say that is because I'm hired or paid, or people come to me for a very specific thing. They're going to pay a premium to go through me to get a round peg for a round hole. So I tell people this, and I try to be honest about what they can expect from me. That said, I will never tell somebody, don't try this, don't do this, no way, because I've seen stuff happen that I never would imagine would have happened. I've made placements that I'm like, wow. So, but I think as a third-party recruiter, as a rule, it's a little bit more challenging to represent somebody when they're looking to make a change, because clients are coming to me to find them exactly. So I'm gonna bow out on a better answer, if that's okay.
No, I think that's a great answer, because I think that people need to know sort of how to approach who they're approaching, if that makes sense, and where to go when they're making those changes. So then I will pivot to Stephen and ask you about pivoting.
Yeah, I think I said this earlier in the chat. I think it's an incredible advantage to have that diversity. So look at it as a strength when you're crafting your message. But I think what, Diane, you're saying too is that sometimes it might take 2 steps to get where you want to go. And so look for opportunities to grow, to find that bridge. Getting a freelance role, getting a contract position can be a great bridge to get to that next opportunity that you're targeting. But again, diversity makes an incredible workforce. So, and then the flip side of that is you're bringing all this rich experience and process new thinking, but then be open to how to think differently, come in with a growth mindset. Even when you're having conversations, when you're networking, people are going to point you in a different direction. So be open to that pivot. You might find that your current position is a better pivot to something different.
Thank you. Brenna, I'm going to ask you next.
Sure. Yes to all of their advice. I think that's all really valuable. And while maybe a third-party recruiter is not the right place to go, there are usually a lot of career groups online, meetups, but less so now that it's COVID, even LinkedIn groups that have the same affiliation. I would start there, and even just asking the question to somebody that you would like to replicate their career, what in my resume is a skill gap, and do you recommend any sort of training? Because if you can show a recruiter or a hiring manager, I took the initiative to learn Salesforce or to learn JavaScript or whatever it is that you don't have at that point, that shows them that you can pick up the rest of it. And then the only other thing that I would say is Again, look at yourself honestly, or get advice from somebody else who knows the industry, and make sure that you have self-awareness and humility and can talk to a recruiter or a hiring manager about it. Because when I was first starting in my career, I didn't have the skills to be an HR leader or a recruiter. And I remember my second startup, they were ready to close down the interview. And I asked them, what, if any, do you have as a hesitation for hiring me? And after the fact, they told me that question was the reason that they decided to hire me. So if you have that sort of self-awareness and willingness to be humble, that usually does go a long way in making a career change.
Thank you. Christina.
Brenna actually said exactly what I was going to say, which is to stay humble and, to try and do as much personal, growth mindset, like what Steven said. And, if you're doing your own personal exploration and education and proactive, trying to pivot on your own, you're probably going to learn naturally the space that you're going to end up in. It's just going to happen organically. And if you're humble about it and not, if you get hired for that role and maybe you only have 70% of the skill set, just know that you're going to have to learn and grow from people around you. And maybe you're not the expert in that field yet. Like you might've been an expert in your field previously, but be excited to learn from the others around you.
Because you talked about portfolios. Oh, sorry. Diana.
I'm sorry, I had one little thing that I just wanted to add too. I actually remember a designer years ago who wanted to get into entertainment marketing design, and he'd never done it. And he took the time to comp up so much great entertainment work that it looked like he had this full entertainment portfolio, and I was able to get him booked in entertainment. So like you said, it goes back to kind of getting the training, getting the, if you maybe, I always tell people, if your cousin owns a hairdresser salon and she needs a new logo, do it for her for free so you can get some logos and whatever it is you're trying to do. Speaking back, you guys said talking about training, do it for free if you need to do it first to get some examples of it or some experience. Go to a class, go to a course, learn from a friend, do it for a friend, that kind of thing. If that helps.
Thank you. Because that was actually what I was going to be leading Christina to in my follow-up question, was to get that work in your portfolio that looks like where you're moving.
Yeah, I mean, I was gonna say personal work. Like if you focus on what you're passionate about, it'll shine through, and I think that'll get you to where you need to go.
Thank you.
Great minds think alike, apparently.
I'm going to go to some attendee questions now. All right, first question from the audience is, explain the gap, because now it takes longer to get a role. It sometimes feels embarrassing when asked what they've been doing since it's taking so long to get hired. What are your opinions on that gap, especially right now?
I'm just going to jump in and say I've appreciated people just being honest. Mm-hmm. Just that's what I've been doing on the phone a lot, especially with starting a new job. I'm just like, what, I haven't been here that long. I just moved from London to that kind of thing. I think if you're genuine and you're honest about it, we all understand what is the world we're living in anymore anyway, so, and from gaps from maternity leave or, personal reasons, I've always found that if you're just honest about it, it works out.
Yeah, I just want to say there's nothing to be embarrassed about.
Yeah.
Like, it's a crazy job market and people have things going on in their lives. Even if you weren't affected by COVID and you have a gap, don't be embarrassed about it. We all have other things going on.
Do any of you advise putting those things on the resume itself, or wait until the interview to kind of fill people in on what's going on in between?
I think it probably depends on the gap, I don't normally dig too much into those gaps unless it's absolutely necessary. Just because I don't necessarily judge a person by the gaps on their resumes or, previous experience at XYZ. It has more to do what they're bringing to the table now. So I would say, you know, if you feel like you need to highlight it because it was such a large gap, again, just be honest. But I wouldn't, and then just be prepared to answer a question if you're asked.
Thank you. Any other
I
thoughts?
kind of agree. I don't think I would highly recommend putting a lot of personal information. It's much easier to tell that story in person. But I do understand that sometimes you're like, how do I cover that gap to get to that point to tell my story? So maybe if you're brief, I would pull back from being put too much.
Yeah, I think, yeah, obviously being transparent, don't conceal a gap on a resume. But if you do put anything on a resume specific to that gap, you know, put things that are applicable that you want to communicate. Like you did freelance consulting, you did some training class. I think that's the stuff to highlight. Other than that, I wouldn't highlight it in any other way. And then if that question comes up, just be prepared to answer it. Again, there's no shame in a gap. I think it's, you know, any hiring manager looks at the totality of what that person brings and their capabilities and skills that can get mapped to the opportunity. And that's the most important thing at the end of the day.
Thank you. All right, do you all still have time to go through messages on LinkedIn that you get from strangers? How many, and then follow-up question is, how many do you get now during the pandemic, as opposed to how many you received before times, as Christina said?
Yes, definitely have time to go through all of the LinkedIn messages from candidates, less so from vendors. I think all of us get messages from both. I will normally say something like, check our jobs page, ask me specific questions, because if somebody's just reaching out saying, hey, I'd love to work with your company, what do you have for me? That doesn't give me enough to really get into a conversation with you on. How many before versus after? Believe it or not, pretty close to the same amount, maybe a slight uptick, but I wouldn't say it's been crazy.
Yeah, I think mine's been about the same.
I agree. Mine hasn't been a crazy amount, and I do try to get back to everybody on LinkedIn because you never know, you know.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Watch, somebody's going to be watching this and be like, you never got back to me on LinkedIn. What are you talking about?
For the attendees, that is the thing that keeps recruiters up at night. You literally wake up at 4 in the morning going, I meant to get back to that person and I didn't because I got 12 other emails in the meantime.
So true, Kate.
All right, this one is from another attendee. Do you see senior caliber people applying for more junior roles, AKA trading down, given that they lost their jobs and they're trying to kind of find anything that works for them? Does it make it tougher for candidates because now you're up against people with more experience considering lower levels? Or does it kind of knock those senior people out because you already have people applying at those lower levels? How's that playing out?
I've actually had, I don't know if anybody else has had this experience, but I've had more junior folks applying for more senior roles because we have more senior roles available and we don't have, you know, the revenue for internships, and considering COVID, we're not able to do internships this year. So I've really felt for this year's graduating class and for people that are new in the job market, because I feel like it's probably toughest for them actually more than some of the more senior folks. But that's just kind of my circle of the industry. So I don't know if that's the same for everybody else.
Anyone else have a different experience?
I would say, again, from a third-party recruiting standpoint, a lot depends on the client too. Some clients, no, again, I don't ever want anyone to feel like they're being exploited, but there are certain things that happen in certain markets. Some clients really like the idea of being able to get more for their money and be able to hire somebody who, gosh, I've got a budget that before meant somebody with 5 years, now I can maybe get somebody with 8 years, and I'm going to take that opportunity, get the best person I can get, you know, with the money I have. Other people look at it differently and think, you know, I don't want this person to leave, you know, in a couple of years, in a year, whatever. So I think a lot depends on the kind of opportunity. What, you can't know this, you can't get inside the client's head to know all this stuff, but a lot depends on really what the client's trying to achieve with that role and that's why you kind of can't take it personally either, because you don't know all that from a job description on LinkedIn, if that makes sense.
Yeah, Tom's, for example, really falls on the latter end of that spectrum where, if we do get a lot of people applying, coming from a director level and applying for a manager level, but ultimately we want to hire people who are going to stick with us after the pandemic's done, and we want to be paying them equitably and fairly. So even though we are getting a lot of talent that's well above what we're looking for, ideally we're getting somebody who's just a little below, and helping them grow in.
Again, as a third-party recruiter, I think easier in the freelance market to do that than maybe in the full-time market. That's maybe where that hey, I can get this amazing art director right now because he's available for this 2-month project kind of thing.
Stephen, what are you seeing?
Yeah, I was trying to think. I don't know if I can contribute to that. I think I'm in a different position where, recruiters in both, when I was into it, Google, they sort of present candidates to me. So there's some level of sort of reviewing candidates in advance. So yeah, I'm not sure I can contribute an answer to this one.
You're getting the short list already.
What's the best way to pick back up communication with a connection that maybe you've dropped the ball with keeping in touch with? So a candidate who perhaps had a relationship with you who sort of disappeared for a while, what's the best way for them to get back in touch with you? What are you going to be most receptive to? Or how can they phrase it?
I mean, I'm not aggravated. I'm not angry with anybody who, went away. So I don't think that would, in my opinion, there's not a whole lot to worry about in that. Just be like, hey, it's been a while. I've been doing this. You've been doing that. I wanted to reconnect. It's I think as long as you're nice and in a kind way, who's going to be upset that I mean, I guess if you had if you ghosted them when they were trying to hire you and, then you have to sometimes pay the piper for some past behavior. But if it's just general time that went by, I see no issue there.
Just from my personal experience, when I've been looking for opportunities in the past, if it's a recruiter I'm talking through a company, yeah, you want to, even if you decline the offer, you're not interested, it didn't work out, always leave on a really positive note and stay connected. And if it's a recruiter that is servicing multiple companies, I maintain that relationship always. So I'm always following up and saying, thank you for sending me the opportunity. I'm currently happy at my role. So I think maintaining those relationships is so key. Yeah, so leave on a positive note and maintain strong relationships, I think, is sort of what I would contribute.
I wasn't sure whether this question was if the recruiter's dropping the ball and, or if it's the candidate side, but I think either way, the answer is just come in with the best intentions and assumptions of the other person, just be honest. If you dropped the ball, say, hey, I really enjoyed talking with you. Sorry for the gap. Here I am. And assume that the recruiter is going to feel the same way.
Excellent. Thank you. All right. When skimming through resumes, are you drawn more to people who are currently employed but wanting to make a change, or to people who are kind of right in that, sort of right in line for that role, but maybe have that gap? You may have already answered this with the gap question.
Me personally, if somebody's available, I'm happy about that because these are going to move more quickly and I can get them in the job more quickly.
Yeah.
I don't come from that motto of I gotta have that boyfriend who doesn't want me. I come from that motto of I'll have that boyfriend who happens to be ready for a date tomorrow, But that's my perspective.
Fair enough. Our salary range is being scaled down. This person has had a few interviews where the pay range seems significantly lower than when they were interviewing before, and they said they're interviewing from or in Silicon Valley. What are you all seeing?
My experience has been that the pay scales are pretty much the same in Silicon Valley, but nowhere else, actually. But that's also might have to do with the specific, it always depends on what part of the industry that you're in. Me personally, from a recruitment perspective, when I was interviewing, I noticed that a lot of my roles were at a lower pay scale, but some of them were completely unaffected. So I think what Brenna was talking about earlier about how some parts of the industry were affected more than others. It kind of depends on the pockets, unfortunately.
Totally.
Nothing is the same anymore.
Yeah, I agree. It's going to depend a lot on the company. I've seen numbers go down a little bit, but some stuff has kind of maintained. It depends also on the company outlook, like you said. Some companies are truly committed to the kind of things that Brianna talked about. Other companies, and it's not even a negative. Other companies are like, we're moving quickly. We want what we can get quickly. We want the best we can get, and we know that it's this market and we can pay a little bit less. It just kind of depends on philosophy, I guess. Company philosophy.
Fair enough. Here's a good one. Will I get disqualified by recruiters or hiring managers if I apply for an individual contributor role, having led teams in smaller companies, but are no longer interested in leading teams and want to sort of make that transition?
No.
No. I would welcome someone who would be so self-aware to be able to acknowledge, like, hey, I've done this work and this is the path that I want to take, and I see that as a positive thing rather than a negative.
And back to packaging. I'm sorry, Stephen, I'm such a talker.
No, go ahead.
Back to that, since we started out with packaging yourself, make sure that if you're going to highlight the things in your past job, you highlight a lot of the non-managerial stuff that you did, you know, to put the right package around your presentation.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, over every time I've been hiring for the last 10 plus years, it's all about the package. But you don't want to conceal the fact that you have that experience as well. And then just when that question comes up during the process with the recruiter, with the hiring manager, be able to explain like where your passion is, why you want to focus on this area now. And they'll probably ask a question like, well, how about 5 years from now? And you'd be like, this is my focus now. And we can always explore that opportunity sometime in the future. Highlight your passion, why you want to make this move.
Yeah, I would say it. Sorry. If anything, if you're coming from a management background and you're aware this is where I enjoy myself the most, that is a huge asset for anyone who wants to hire someone long term, because not every company can guarantee or even provide stepping stones up to a manager, director, whatever level. If you come in saying, I love putting my head down and getting things done, that's a huge win.
Nice. I feel like I'm sensing a strong theme in these answers with be transparent, let you all know why, sort of the, why they're making that change, why they're applying for the role, the passion that they're bringing to that, and make the case for themselves. Provide some sort of documentation, whether it is in their previous work experience or in a portfolio or in education that they're bringing to the table, but communicate. All right. I think one more question before we wrap up. Let's see, sorry. I guess I should ask this first before I ask the question. Do any of you or all of you use applicant tracking systems currently? Yes. All right. So I want to read the question as it's written so that I do not mess it up. What's the inside scoop on ATS system? Any tips, especially for transitioning roles? What's the best way to get through those systems? Or as a friend of mine used to say, fight the bots, to be seen by a person?
I think it depends on how your team how the internal recruitment team set up. We use Greenhouse. I'm sure a lot of you guys also use Greenhouse. Most people in the industry do, and that actually is catered towards human interaction as opposed to bot interaction. It just depends on if you have a recruiter, then shortlisting, which goes to the hiring manager. It depends on how interactive the team is. So to piggyback again on what you were saying before, if you have a question, I'd say follow up. Try to keep the communication open as much as possible, but I think applicant tracking systems have actually gone a long way, and that they make it a little easier than it was previously.
Okay. I would only add maybe that if you're trying to make sure that you don't get botted out by something, think about how you're keywording your resume and your cover letters and things like that, and make sure that you're including words and phrases and terms, softwares and knowledge and things like that that you know are going to be applicable to what you're applying to, because that's how lots of stuff gets fed through and searched and stuff like that.
Yeah, and to be fair, a lot of software is built as humans go through things themselves. So if anyone is using a software that cuts through resumes based on keywords, it's because a recruiter might also do the same thing. So what I always recommend is take a look at the job that you're applying for and literally copy the language in. If you see a skill that you have, put it in there. If you see a task that you've done and you have it listed a different way on your resume, swap it out. This is really going to make you a clear no-brainer fit for anyone that's looking, tech or human.
Yep.
Especially on LinkedIn.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, and add those skills into your LinkedIn so I can find you.
Goes back to the, go ahead.
I have no visibility to this, so I'm learning a bunch. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah. It goes back to that beginning about make sure you're being as complete as possible. You have to be your own SEO manager and make sure that you are being as complete as possible.
Well, thank you all very much. We are at 8:30, so I'm going to ask each of you in wrapping up to share with us, are you hiring? How can people reach you if they want to reach out to you? What are you comfortable with in terms of communication preferences? Let us know. Feel free to share in the chat, or you can send them to me or to Emily, and we will share through the Facebook group. But do you all want to sort of parting words, give us your last pearls of wisdom, and let us know sort of what you're hiring for and how we can get in touch with you? Brenna?
Sure. So parting words of wisdom, the job market sucks right now. I think we can all be honest about that and just ignore any sort of negativity that you have building up inside, any sort of embarrassment over gaps. You are not alone. Everyone we talk to is going through something right now. So just do your best to bring something that makes you happy to the next job that you're going to. Tom's, cough, cough, awesome job, awesome place to work. We're hiring right now. And if you guys want to get in touch with me, you can find me on LinkedIn, or I'll share my email address and you can just reach me directly. Cool.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Diane, I know you're going to have roles.
I'm going to have what?
You're going to have roles.
Absolutely, yes. I have tons of roles, and I invite anybody to get in touch with me. I'm at The Agency Works. I'm actually at Diane P at theagencyworks.com. Works is with an X. You can get it from Kate, or you can link in with me. And I guess my pearls of wisdom, it's funny because I used that term when I talked about getting on this panel today, are to piggyback more on what Brenna said. I think positivity goes a long way, and where it's not always easy to be positive. Realize that when you're not hearing from people or when you're getting rejections, you've got to just keep moving past them. Try not to take things personally, even though I know it's personal. It's our life and it's your job search. And I feel like we have to all have hope for the future. I think we're all looking for 2021. And I think that it's going to really start moving forward and improving as we keep going through the year, through the end of the year and next year. Good luck.
Thanks. Thank you. Christina?
I was just going to say, I played a lot of volleyball in my lifetime, and we had at uni, we had this term, just next ball, next ball. Like I mentioned, I was out of work for 6 months in the middle of moving countries during this, and there were many days I did not want to get back up and get the next ball, but I would just encourage you to keep going. I know sometimes that's the last thing you want to hear right now. But at Magic Leap, we are looking for lead interaction designers, product designers. I do a lot of work with spatial computing engineers, and my teammates are always looking for graphics engineers. So you can find me on LinkedIn. I will also give Kate my email because my last name is too long to spell out. And yeah, that's it from me.
And Stephen?
Sure. Yeah, I'll land on a positive note. I think for sure the muddy waters we're experiencing right now will definitely clear, and there will be a path forward for you if you're looking for new opportunities. I'd also say that when you're thinking about that opportunity, really focus on, what you can bring to the table, and then maintain really great how, like how you want to approach solving the problems, how do you want to apply for the job, how you become positive. You can definitely reach me on LinkedIn, Stephen Gay. I have a website, stephengay.com, and I have a graphic novel book out. So check that out. It talks a lot about these fundamentals of communication and collaboration, and like that's key. So I think make sure you're thinking about that just as much as the what you can do.
Awesome, thank you. I will find a link to that and put it in our Facebook group. For those of you who attended, thank you so much for giving us your time today. I'm sorry that I didn't get to absolutely everyone's attendee questions, but I do think that you kind of got a lot of, not just wisdom, but a lot of general themes that probably answer a lot of the other questions that are out there. So start thinking through sort of what you heard today, how you can apply it to yourself. And I think the biggest thing that we all learned is stay positive, stay focused, and keep going. I love that next fall. That is fantastic. So thank you all for joining us. And to the panelists, thank you. I can't get everyone off mute, so I will be the big round of applause for everyone. I really so appreciate your time tonight. You've been fantastic. Thank you for the conversation, and thank you for the pearls of wisdom.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Kate.
Right. Bye, y'all.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.